Oh, yeah. Okay. So we have the first question here.
The first question goes like this. What if we consume too much protein? Will that be hard on our kidneys and liver?
That's a great question. It's one that I get all the time. So I am a protein expert. My research is protein amino acids, so that's what I'm known for internationally. The simplest answer to that is there is no such thing as too much protein. That is a myth. Okay? The origins of that myth are that people who have kidney failure have to reduce the amount of solutes, and whether it's salt or whether it's nitrogen, protein, they have to reduce it. So there's this link between kidney function and protein, but it's purely for people who have kidney failure. Okay? As far as the range of healthy protein of intake, it's enormous. It goes up well into the 350 grams per day. The average intake of protein, probably people sitting in this room, range from probably 50 to 100 grams. The safe range is up to 350. I challenge any of you to eat that much. Okay, you simply can't. So as far as healthy liver, healthy kidneys, there really is no upper limit. So any of that is really a myth that's been perpetuated out there.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Layman.
Second question is, if someone were to take the metabolic shake and recharge weight management program, but did not enjoy any weight loss after 2 months, what is the possible cause and what is your advice?
They're eating too many carbs. They're still eating rice and noodles. Let me come back to that. Let's see, I was thinking, I'll finish that one first. So there's no question that if you're looking at weight loss, you have to reduce calories. Okay? And I don't care whether it's our diet or anybody else's diet. If you're going to lose weight, you have to reduce calories. Okay? So if you're not losing weight, that means you're eating too much. End of discussion. Okay? And chances are what is happening is what I just said when I was talking, is somebody took the shake and they just added it into a bad diet and said, well, magic shake is going to make me lose weight. It's just 200 extra calories on top of a bad diet if you do it that way. So the issue is you've got to switch out this protein and carbohydrate ratio. The shake is to help you make that more convenient to do. Shakes taste great. Usually we recommend you can do it in two ways. The shake is designed to be mixed into water. And usually for women who are smaller, less muscle mass, we recommend they do it. And for men, we usually recommend they mix it into something like milk or something that adds a little more calories. You can do it either way. In the U.S., usually we have women do it in water and men do it in milk. You can do it in something like almond milk or something like that if you want to, but you got to be really careful how many carbohydrates. Almond milk is, I always tease that they call it should never have been called almond milk. It should have been called nut juice. Okay, that wouldn't sell, right? It's not a milk. It's basically a little bit of a little bit of fats with a lot of carbs added to it in a lot of cases. So you have to be really careful about those, because if you take in too many carbs with metabolic, you'll totally defeat the purpose. Okay, so it has to be balanced correctly. Let's see. There was something I was going to go back to on the first one. What was the first question? About the protein. I was going to mention that one of the things we find when people start taking more protein is what we call hygroscopic. It draws water to it. And so, particularly in women, when a lot of women will be taking in fairly low amounts of protein, and if they start going to this, a lot of times they're doubling their protein intake. And what they'll get is GI discomfort. And the reason is they're not drinking enough fluid. It draws too much water to it. It sort of dehydrates you. So two things to keep in mind, especially if you're on a low protein diet, if you get any discomfort. One is you're not drinking enough fluid, because you got to keep it hydrated. You got to keep enough fluid in it. And the second is you might want to maybe in the first few days only take half a shake at a meal while your body gets used to it, to sort of ratchet up. So the idea of having a lot of protein is fine, but you also need to let the body get used to it. So most men can shift to it because they're close enough. We're really just kind of rebalancing their diet. but a lot of women are pretty low in protein, and they sometimes will have some discomfort in the first few days.
For some people who takes metabolic shake, they feel hungry after taking it an hour or two later. And if in such a situation, should they take in more food because they are hungry? And what sort of food should they be taking?
That's a good question. Again, we think that breakfast is the key meal because you're coming out of an overnight period where you haven't eaten for 10, 12 hours. Your body is in a position where it's burning a lot of fat. You haven't eaten, and so your body is burning stored fat. That's good. Your body is also breaking down muscle protein because you haven't eaten for 12 hours. So what you eat at that first meal is really critical. And so our balance of protein carbohydrate is designed to sort of correct that. The reason we talk about mixing it with water or other fluids is to kind of get your calorie amount right. What our expectation is you should be able to take the metabolic shake at around 8 in the morning or something, and you should be able to get to noon, 12 o'clock, 4 to 5 hours later. And you'll be hungry at that point, but you shouldn't want a snack in between. Okay? So if you're hungry before you get to noon, you should try mixing the shake. If you're using water, mix it in something with a little more calories. Okay? So bring the calorie level up. Two things to keep in mind is in between is that things that will make you hungry. If you take in the shake at 8 and then go to the office and drink coffee or tea or other things that have flavor, those will make you hungry. So you can't have flavored drinks in between. Our rule for weight loss when you're trying to lose weight, again, if you're trying to lose weight, is that you can have flavored drinks within a half an hour of eating. Once you get out of the absorptive period, you almost assuredly will get hungry from those kinds of drinks. So you can have the drinks before the meal or half an hour after, but once you get beyond that, you just have to stay away because you're going to get hungry. So that's not an issue of the shakes, that's an issue of flavor responses.
Is metabolic shake and recharge suitable for a diabetic patient?
Metabolic is, actually every one of our products is good for a diabetic, whether it's the core products or the prime products or the metabolic. So one of the things we're doing with metabolic is stabilizing insulin, which is exactly the problem that a type 2 diabetic has. So basically what we usually find with people who have type 2 diabetes is that when they go to metabolic, they'll dramatically either stabilize their glucose, or if they're taking medications, they'll dramatically lower the medications they take. In some cases, we get total remission. We'll totally correct the condition. Kind of depends on how long they've had diabetes and how bad it is. But if they're kind of newly diagnosed, what we found is that 9 out of 10 individuals that we found that were newly dosed diabetes, we would actually revert them back. They were no longer diabetic. Okay, so it's very effective, and you just have to recognize that what we're doing is stabilizing blood glucose because of the reducing the carbohydrate intake by the overall program, and chances are you'll need less medications.
There has been some thoughts that eating more small meals throughout the day is better than taking 3 huge main meals each day. So can someone take half a pack of shake and then take the other half later? And by breaking it down, does it make any difference to the body?
It makes a huge difference, and the first part of the question is taking lots of small meals is totally wrong. That is a carbohydrate concept. If you want to have a lot of small meals, that's the reason that is if you eat lots of carbohydrates, you're hungry every 2 hours because you have a dip in blood glucose, and so you want to snack again. Okay, that is an artifact of bad diets. So eating 3 distinct meals and not eating between is the best way to control diet, and it's the way metabolic works. Can you split it up? Metabolic is exactly designed to trigger metabolism, so you have to take it all in a certain period of time. If you don't drink the metabolic shake within 20 to 30 minutes, you'll lose the effect. So if you drink it in 3 pieces over an hour and a half, you won't get any effect. Okay? Because it's all based on changing the blood in a certain time frame. Okay? Your levels of protein, your level of amino acids in the blood, your levels of sugar, all have to change in a certain pattern. And if you just sort of trickle it in over time, you'll totally lose the effect. So metabolic and recharge are all designed to be consumed as a drink, as you'd normally take a drink within 30 minutes, 20 minutes, but you can't go beyond that. Got a question for that? Want to follow up on that?
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to follow up on your answer. Is that I think what you meant is if we shake it well and we consume it after the 30 minutes, it will not work. But what if I mix half a packet, then after a later time I mix
No, what I meant
half.
had nothing to do with shaking. You have to take everything in the package within 30 minutes.
Package?
Everything in that package, all 60 grams that are in that, you have to down. It has nothing to do with how you shake it or how you store it.
Oh no! I mean we shake. As in, we mix the mixture, but we consume it beyond half an hour session. I think that's what you're talking about, right? That will not have an effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is actually, if I mix half a package and drink in the morning, and maybe later at 10 o'clock, I mix the other half of it. And
What
drink
I'm
it.
telling you is the whole package.
Okay.
The whole package has to be mixed at one time. You can't make up your own approach.
Can someone overdose on metabolic shake? Which means, what is the upper limits? How many packet of sachets can one take in a day? The maximum.
When we having people do weight loss, when you get the lifestyle book, it's online, you can download it. When you look at it, what we recommend is in the first 30 days, you use 2 a day. So what we have is a 90-day program that we want to teach this lifestyle. In the first 30 days, what we recommend is people use a shake for breakfast and a shake for lunch. And then learn to create that meal at nighttime. Nighttime is usually, at least in the United States, is our larger meal. Wherever your larger meal is, you should use the shake for the other 2. If your large meal's at noon, then use your shake at morning and night. It doesn't matter. But wherever your larger meal is, chances are you have more protein in that meal, and it's easier to, and probably vegetables, and you just have a more complete meal. So start with that meal, get it right, learn to do that plate look. And then in month 2, what we recommend is you keep the one at breakfast, and then you fill in, learn to do the other meal. So you're learning one meal at a time, kind of learning to get that in your lifestyle. And then in month 3, you can experiment with either, even doing it without the shake and learn to do a breakfast on your own if you don't want to. So basically, you can use the shakes forever. We don't recommend using more than 2 a day. We want you to have at least 1 regular meal because our shakes aren't fortified with vitamins and minerals. And if you're going to use 2 shakes a day for a long period, we'd recommend you take a vitamin mineral supplement. So we didn't choose to fortify we want you to have normal diets, okay? So the shakes are particularly designed to be for breakfast as long as you want to do it, okay, to make the day convenient. You can use them twice a day, and I know people who have used them twice a day for 5 years, and just keep using them. They just find they like them, they're convenient, and they like it, they're on the run, they mix them up in their car when they're driving around down them. So, but we don't recommend going beyond 2 a day.
Okay. Now there are 2 parts to this question. Maybe the first part was probably answered earlier, but never mind, I'll just repeat it. Is taking a meal on top of the shake going to increase weight since this is a meal replacement? And the second part is, if yes, the next question is, how does people who needs to chew their food in order to feel full gets into such a program? They need to chew in order to feel full. There's no chewing.
So the first one is taking the shake on top of a meal. Again, these shakes can be used by anyone. So if you're, if you're a bodybuilder, if you're a 16-year-old who's trying to develop it's perfectly fine to have these shakes right as a drink along with a normal meal. That's perfectly fine if you're an athlete trying to build muscle. If you have a child who's not eating very well, just give them a shake and let them eat whatever else that goes with it. So it's perfectly fine. Obviously, if you're trying to lose weight, taking a 220 calorie shake on top of what's already causing you to be fat is not a good choice. Hopefully that's pretty clear. What was the second part?
For someone who needs to chew their
chew food
in order to feel full.
One possibility to that, and I sometimes do it, is I'll take the shake and I'll actually blend in something that like berries or something, sometimes frozen berries, and you can kind of make a slushy out of it. You have to be real careful. You can't use bananas, you can't use melons, you can't use a lot of the sugary fruits. You have to go with something like berries. In the U.S., blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries are very available to us. And so you can blend in something that's very high fiber and you'll get some of that effect. It's one of the reasons we also only want to use them one meal a day, because there is satiety to chewing food, and we want you to chew your food at the other meals. But at breakfast, we'd like you to get it right, and that's what the shake does.
The other question is about hormonal imbalance. There's also been talks that for men, the reason why they have fats on the midriff is also because of the reduction in testosterone in their body. And for women, the tendency to have issues with their hormonal imbalance. How would that relate to metabolic shake?
Certainly as we get older, hormones change. There's no question about that. The biggest hormone change that any of us ever experienced, though, is insulin changing. And that drives all of the others. And so we think about insulin, we think about diabetes and blood sugar, but the real role of insulin is it's a growth hormone. It's very active when you're growing. And when you stop growing in your mid-20s, insulin stops working very well. And so things that work when you're 16 and 20 don't serve you very well when you're 45 and 50. And so the biggest change is insulin. And what metabolic does is correct insulin. And when you correct insulin, you'll correct estrogen problems and fat storage and testosterone. Insulin is highly inflammatory. There's a lot of people, myself included, that believe that the major cause of heart disease is the inflammation of excess insulin. And that's from eating too many carbohydrates. Okay? It's not from eating too many fats. Fats, that is totally misleading. That information is totally false. Being obese is a risk, but eating fats isn't, but eating carbohydrates is.
Now I've completed the written questions. Is there anyone from the floor here who may have questions? Okay.
You just mentioned that if you mix banana in your metabolic in the morning, what is the problem?
Banana is 35 grams of sugar. Okay, so it's more than the candy bar. Okay, so it's basically like saying if I eat a candy bar with a shake, why doesn't it work? Okay, it's pure sugar. Okay, so what you want is something like half a cup of blueberries, which has 4 grams of sugar in it. A banana, melons, all of those have way too much sugar in it. So I guarantee you if you mix the shake with banana, it won't work.
So my name is Michael, and we have a daughter who is 6, and she's very skinny, don't want to eat food. So is it suitable?
Absolutely.
At her
Absolutely.
age?
Any age.
And
don't worry about, let her drink whatever amount she wants, so if she gets full of it, stop, but it's great. It'd be perfect. If she likes it, she'd probably like the chocolate one.
Thank you.
You just mentioned fats as being one of these very misunderstood concepts. Are there other health-related concepts that you see are these myths or these misunderstandings that are just being grossly misrepresented or misunderstood? Could you just mention some of the ones that come to your mind?
One that I always, since I work in the protein field, one that hits me practically daily is protein and cancer. okay, or red meats in cancer, and those sorts of things. Two of the things that are misleading out there in nutrition literature is nutrition is largely based on survey data, and the survey data is awful. Basically, they only record about 1/3 of what people eat, and the 2/3 of what people eat, and the third they miss is snacking, and snacking is almost all carbohydrates. And so the estimates where they think something relates to protein, it almost always relates to carbohydrate. Okay, so that's sort of the big myth. And we've sort of gone that way with saturated fats. First it was cholesterol. We thought cholesterol caused something, and that was all survey-based data. And cholesterol has, actually you need cholesterol. It's basically an essential nutrient. Okay, you really need it in your diet. And saturated fat, the saturated fat that you eat in your diet has very little to do with the saturated fat in your blood. The primary saturated fat in your blood comes from the carbohydrates you eat. And I could go into a fairly long story about that. Let's see if I can simplify it. When you eat a meal that has carbohydrate in it, if you eat more than 30 grams, the body has to store all of it. 30 grams of carbohydrates. 30 grams of carbohydrates is pretty small. It's like half a cup of rice. If you eat more than that, the body has to store it, and the only way the body stores carbohydrates is make fat out of it. And the only fat the body can make is palmitate, the most saturated and cardiovascular oriented. Okay? So if you look at red meat, if you look at pure lard and beef fat, pure lard contains 23% palmitate. So if you take in 100 extra calories of pure beef fat, you'll get 23 calories from palmitate, but if you take in 100 extra calories from rice, you'll get 100 extra calories of fat, of palmitate, okay? So if you really think palmitate's a problem, it's coming from the